Of being the most complained about ad of 2011, and now the controversial Rip and Roll campaign, which promotes safe sex in the gay community, has made a return to Queensland bus shelters and billboards this week.
It's certainly not the first marketing campaign to push a few boundaries, but as others have shown over the years, sometimes not all publicity is good publicity. This was the most complained about ad of last year. The Queensland Safe Sex campaign was temporarily pulled from billboards and bus shelters after the Advertising Standards Board received a record 222 complaints. Now it's making a comeback, with a revamped version of the poster hitting Queensland this week. Organisers say this year's version is designed to be subtle, and while they don't anticipate a backlash, they're ready if they do. It's not the only ad campaign to cop serious criticism. The Commonwealth Bank was recently forced to apologise after this advert making light of a bomb hoax at the London Olympics.
Don't look now. There's a guy over the road who just asked us a few times to take his backpacking to the stadium. He's sweating profusely.
Yeah, the backpack's like ticking and making whizzing
kind of sound.
Isn't he with you?
No.
The Australian Medical Institute continue to be the bad boys of the industry. Their Want Longer Lasting Sex billboard received a whopping 265 complaints, proving sex doesn't always sell. This Ingham's chicken commercial was meant as a joke.
So what if you're one of the 14 Australians who don't like chicken? Then there is something wrong with you.
But religious groups and vegetarians were outraged, with 181 official complaints calling for it to be canned.
I'm here to take Jennifer's virginity out tonight.
It didn't take long for this raunchy Toyota Yaris ad to be pulled from the web.
Yep. Couple of nice big SRS airbags up front to throw my head into.
And while this campaign made Lara Bingle a household name,
so where the bloody hell are you?
the controversial catchphrase offended some countries, with Britain banning the ad altogether.
Well, let's take a look at this. Joining us in the studio with more is media expert Tim Burrows from Umbrella and marketing guru Matthew Bywater from For Promote. Good morning to you both.
Hey.
Tim, I'm going to start with you. The latest Rip and Roll ad has been toned down a bit because of last year's controversy. Is that seen as caving in?
Do you know what? It's a weird position they start from, because what was actually quite a small campaign last year had an enormous amount of attention drawn to it because of the complaints they didn't go out looking for. So they're much more under the spotlight than they would have expected. So I think, you know, they've taken a sensible approach. Yes, it does feel like it's a bit toned down, but really it's still a win. You know, the fact that we're talking about it, you know, this isn't just a small campaign running on a few billboards. It's got more attention. So I think they would count the pluses as more than the negatives in this case.
Does it matter that it's more a community service thing as opposed to a commercial? Do they look at that differently as opposed to, say, for a condom maker? Or
there are some differences in how the Ad Standards Board looks at things, which is the body that sort of looks at these things.
Yeah.
It will give a bit more sort of room when it's a safety message, for instance.
Sure.
So there's a bit more wiggle room, but it doesn't give everyone sort of completely free rein.
But we're used to edge in our commercials. We like it. How far should they push? What works, what doesn't work?
I think it depends on the brand, you know. And actually, when it goes wrong, sometimes it's just a complete blunder, a complete cock-up. You know, we looked at the Comm Bank example there. We looked at the Yaris example. Both things that really weren't meant for a wide audience, possibly not even meant to reach public eyes at all, and did, and became a mistake.
Well, that's naive to think that it's not going to reach public eyes.
Yeah, it was foolish, but the Comm Bank one was up for a matter of hours before they pulled it down, for instance.
Well, that doubting T in the Commonwealth Bank ad also cost James Magnuson a gold medal, you know, the same sort of thing.
Yes, I've heard that as well.
That's a long stretch. But there can be an identity crisis here with a lot of these companies, because they're not sure what they want to do. The banks are big, safe, friendly. They're the people who are supposed to look after our home loans, our mortgages, our life savings, but yet they're trying to bring humour into it, and it doesn't quite align with the branding of the bank. So I sometimes question what they're trying to achieve by this.
So that's a blunder. That's a blunder, isn't it? That's not because it got publicity, that's a win.
They weren't going out looking for controversy. Some you do, and if that's your brand, if that fits your brand, then, hey, people will probably be happy with that, so long as it doesn't offend their customers. You know, there are some brands that don't mind who else they offend, so long as it brings in customers. But the wider, you know, the ones with a wider footprint who want to appeal to everyone don't really want to be in that sort of controversy.
You're right, though. You don't think humour when you think banks. That is not naturally funny. That's an absolute wrong path for them to go?
Absolutely, and I understand what they're trying to do. Banks, they have this one big advantage in their favour, is that they know that we do not change banks quickly and easily. It's a very small churn factor for clients. So what they're actually after here is the Gen Y market, much like the Toyota Yaris ad we saw before. The problem is nobody really knows how to attack that market. They're a different beast and species altogether almost, and you cannot attack the larger broadstream market in the Gen X's and baby boomers and the Gen Ys, and they have this identity crisis with it.
If you're a company, is it hard to pick it these days? Back 30 years ago, we were a lot more conservative. We all knew the rules now. Now it's more open slather. Do you think it's hard to pick now as a community where we stand on things?
I think you can't always call which are going to be the controversial ones. I never would have called that rip and roll one. If there hadn't been a sort of big lobbying campaign, it wouldn't have been the most complained about.
But gay is always going to
It always is, because
controversy.
you get Christian lobbies, you know, sort of, and that seemed to be what happened with that case. There was lobbying, but you can't always call it. You know, things you see go up, you think, wow, what were they thinking? You know, and a couple of those we saw were definitely in the what were they thinking department.
Yeah.
Very clever people,
so hard to
paid a lot of money, have let these things through.
Yeah, hard to pick.
Are they still? I mean, we talk with the image of advertising executives are that young, hip, groovy, very, very smart. Is that really what we're looking at?
That's when it goes wrong.
Yeah.
Is, you know, when they're not actually in touch with the wider audience, when they are young and funky. That was how the Yaris, which was the winner of a user-generated competition, ended up, because, you know, there were no grown-ups in the room when they let it go out.
But then, Matty, grown-ups may not be buying Yarises. Maybe 21-year-olds are the people who are buying. So that's a tick or a fail.
That's right, because the great dichotomy is that to get to Gen Ys, you need Gen Y type thinking to get in there, but they still need to be vetted by grown-ups, because there's no such thing as narrowcasting anymore, because people used to think the web was narrowcasting. It's not. It goes viral within minutes. So you need to have some grown-ups in the room.
All right, like this show, sadly we have no grown-ups at all. Thank you both for your time.
Thanks.